Hello, friends and lovers of medieval history. Today's video is for you. In this episode, you're going to discover some of the strangest beauty standards and personal rituals that shaped the lives of women in the Middle Ages. Grab your popcorn and stay until the end, because some of these medieval beauty habits are far more bizarre than you might expect. Take a moment to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It genuinely helps. Let's begin. Large forehead women. Sacrificing comfort, identity, and even pain in the name of beauty is nothing new. And in the Middle Ages, from the 13th century onward, showing off a large, rounded forehead was considered extremely attractive. It made the face appear longer and more delicate, which matched the ideal feminine image of the time. To achieve a forehead that fit the medieval beauty standard, women used razors to shave their hairline, making the forehead appear larger. And this was not limited to the front of the head. They often removed about 2 centimeters from the entire hairline, including the nape of the neck and behind the ears. This ideal was especially visible among women of higher social classes, because fashion was also a way of showing status. A woman who had time to maintain her appearance, shape her hairline, and follow difficult beauty trends was also showing that she did not live the life of a laborer. The forehead became almost like a display area for beauty. This was not a quick or painless process. It required constant maintenance, because as soon as the hair began to grow back, the illusion of the perfect forehead was ruined. It is believed that part of this fashion was connected to medieval hats and headdresses, which often framed the face and left the forehead exposed. So while today many people try to hide a receding hairline, in the Middle Ages, some women were deliberately creating one. Long hair and hair extensions. The medieval man loved to admire long, voluminous hair. Hair was often connected to femininity, youth, fertility, and sensuality. Because of this, women tried to make their hair appear longer and thicker than it really was. Hair extensions were one of the strategies used to create this effect. They helped give the impression of abundant, flowing locks, even when a woman's natural hair was thinner or shorter. Long hair also carried symbolic meaning. In many medieval stories, paintings, and religious images, a woman's hair could represent temptation, purity, beauty, or danger, depending on how it was shown. Loose hair could appear romantic or seductive, while covered hair suggested modesty and respectability. Because of this, hair was not just decoration. It was a message. A married woman, a young unmarried woman, a noble woman, or a woman of questionable reputation could all be judged by how their hair was arranged, hidden, or displayed. The clergy tried to discourage the practice, saying that false hair was one of the sins of vanity. In the eyes of religious authorities, altering the body too much could be seen as deception, pride, or temptation. Some church records from the time claimed that wigs were probably made from the shaved heads of people who were now suffering in purgatory. This idea made the practice seem not only vain, but spiritually dangerous. Still, men loved long hair, and many women continued to use extensions despite religious criticism. Flaxen hair. Flax-colored hair was one of the most desired shades for women. Blonde hair was often associated with purity, softness, youth, and heavenly beauty. Angels were frequently imagined and described with golden or light-colored hair, which helped make blondness a powerful beauty ideal. If a woman managed to achieve a very light, almost platinum tone, she would have been considered especially beautiful. This preference was also connected to medieval ideas about light and virtue. Pale skin, light eyes, and golden hair often appeared together in idealized descriptions of beauty. A woman with these features could be imagined as more delicate, more innocent, and closer to religious images of purity. Of course, this did not mean every woman naturally looked this way. Beauty standards rarely care about reality. Many women had darker hair, and if the fashion demanded brightness and gold, they searched for ways to imitate it. But medieval women did not have modern hair dye or hydrogen peroxide. That did not stop them from trying. One of the most commonly mentioned methods involved a mixture of saffron and goat urine. After applying it to the hair, women would sit in the sun, hoping the mixture and sunlight would gradually lighten their locks. And then there was the magical solution. Some people believed that a special stone could help keep hair blonde. The trick was to wear a necklace with a large opal stone. They believed that placing an opal around the neck would prevent the hair from becoming darker. In other words, if herbs, urine, and sunlight were not enough, magic could complete the beauty routine. All you had to do was wear the stone, trust its power, and hope your hair remained golden. Shaved eyebrows and no eyelashes. If medieval fashion came back today, we would certainly have thousands of beauty influencers posting tutorials on how to shave your eyebrows and pluck out every single eyelash. For some reason, medieval women began shaving their eyebrows. Historians often connect this fashion to the obsession with a large forehead. Removing the eyebrows made the forehead seem even higher, smoother, and more dramatic. The goal was to look refined, according to the standards of the time. A face without visible brows or lashes created a soft, blank expression that matched the medieval ideal of modesty, delicacy, and controlled beauty. So while today people spend money on eyebrow pencils, lash extensions, and mascara, some medieval women were doing the exact opposite. A slightly protruding belly. If you have a six-pack, congratulations, but in the Middle Ages, that might not have helped you very much. At the end of the Middle Ages, one beauty ideal for women included a slightly protruding belly. A soft, rounded abdomen could be seen as attractive because it suggested fertility, health, and access to food. In a world where hunger, disease, and poverty were common, being too thin was not always desirable. A flat stomach with visible ribs could suggest that a woman was poor, sick, or not eating enough. A small belly could also be associated with motherhood and fertility. In a society where marriage, inheritance, and family survival were deeply important, the female body was often judged through its connection to childbirth. This beauty standard also reminds us that bodies were read differently depending on the historical period. Medieval beauty was shaped by survival, food scarcity, religion, class, and marriage expectations. In the Middle Ages, that softness might have made you look healthy, desirable, and ready to attract a handsome warrior. Bound breasts. To fit social expectations, women often bound their breasts with strips of fabric or leather called a bandeau. The bandeau reduced the size of the breasts and helped create a more modest silhouette. Clothing was not only about comfort or style, it was a public statement about morality, class, and discipline. A controlled body suggested a controlled woman. In some contexts, visible or unrestrained breasts were linked to women of lower moral reputation. A woman who intended to marry was expected to keep her breasts controlled and covered. They also helped improve posture, giving women a more upright and composed appearance. So, while modern fashion often emphasizes curves, medieval fashion could sometimes do the opposite: hide, flatten, and control them. No visible moles. For some reason, skin was extremely important in the Middle Ages. Women often tried to have pale, smooth, flawless skin, but it was not only about being pale. Marks on the skin were often viewed with suspicion. Having freckles, moles, or birthmarks was not always socially accepted. In a deeply Christian society, unusual marks on the body could be interpreted as signs of sin, witchcraft, or contact with evil forces. This fear came from the medieval habit of looking for spiritual meaning in physical signs. The body was often treated like a map of the soul. A mark, a scar, or an unusual feature could become evidence of hidden corruption, even when it was completely natural. So, my friend, if you wanted to impress medieval society, it was better not to have moles on your body or freckles on your face. Herbal sachets under the skirt. Any woman knows that going 2 or 3 days without intimate hygiene can be disastrous when it comes to body odor. In the Middle Ages, bathing habits were very different from today. Many people believed that bathing too often could be dangerous because warm water opened the pores, making it easier for diseases to enter the body. Because of this belief, people often relied on perfumes, herbs, scented cloths, and other methods to mask body odor. From the 12th century onward, women began to realize that when their bodies smelled pleasant, men reacted more positively. Scent was also connected to status. Pleasant fragrances could suggest access to gardens, spices, imported ingredients, or household resources. A woman who smelled of roses, lavender, or aromatic herbs could appear more refined than someone who smelled of sweat, smoke, or labor. Since bathing was not always recommended, women had to rely on other tricks. They used linen soaked in rose water, rosemary, or lavender over their breasts in order to perfume the body. These scents were not chosen randomly. Flowers, herbs, and spices were associated with freshness, cleanliness, and attraction. But the most common trick was to keep small sachets underneath the clothes. Sachets filled with aromatic spices were placed in several areas of the body, on the chest, over the arms, and under the skirts. They helped disguise sweat and created the impression of cleanliness, even when the body had not been washed. Fortunately, by the end of the Middle Ages, women discovered that the lack of frequent bathing did not necessarily mean they had to smell bad. And so, long before modern deodorant, medieval women were already finding creative ways to survive the battle against body odor. And these were some of the strangest beauty rules women followed in the Middle Ages. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next story.